When I asked, have you ever faced a hard time, I got a painful, sarcastic laughter from some of you. So some of you know what I'm talking about. If you're around age 5 to 15 and don't know, it's coming. Just wait. Just wait. I was at Glacier View Summer Camp in Colorado. I was camp counselor there and also the first indoor pool director of Glacier View Ranch. And I had stepped out of my cabin for just a minute. When I came back, I found out that a fight had ensued and one of my little campers got beat up bad. Instead of doing the usual push-ups, lie on your stomach, clean the bathroom, etc., I thought the situation was serious enough to take this straight to the boys' counselor, the head of the boys' counselors, and let him deal with it. And I thought, I can wash my hands in innocence and leave it in his hands. Well, I went about my business as a camp counselor. Beautiful camp, by the way. Snow-capped mountain in the background, a little lake in the front. You ever been? We in Adventist circles, we really only know Glacier View because of summer camp or because of Desmond Ford. If you don't know what that is, we'll keep moving. I went about my business throughout the day. I got a call from the camp director himself. He wanted me on the phone. The parent had found out about this. This was after they picked up the kids and all that. His stomach was all black and blue from bruises, and he was suing the Rocky Mountain Conference for abuse. I was the camp counselor in that boy's cabin. And now the parent was on the phone three-way with the camp director, Ron Whitehead, and myself, threatening a lawsuit. And the parent wanted to talk to me. Yeah, hard times, huh? My fault. I didn't watch the kids for 1 minute. 1 minute. I managed to calm the parent down and diffuse the situation, explained my procedure, what I did, what happened. I apologized profusely, and the parent withdrew the lawsuit. They say talk is cheap. That was $300,000 for 3 minutes. I've been in a lawsuit. The camp director, wise man, he gave me the day off. And normally camp counselors, when they get the day off at Glacier View Ranch, they would head to Boulder. My guess is Starbucks. And we know about caffeine. I headed straight for the mountains. And I spent a day walking through the valley. And as I'm walking through the valley, I don't remember the name of the mountain. No GPS, no compass. I didn't get lost. Surprisingly, even though Nancy was not around, she's my GPS. I'm walking through that. Psalm 23 comes to my mind, and the thought strikes me that you walk through the valley of the shadow of death. I could have been in big trouble with this family and a lawsuit and Rocky Mountain Conference and reputation and all that. But the day turned out okay. Snow-capped mountains in the background, a creek. It was picture-perfect postcard weather. Climbed out up a mountain. I saw a lake with a cabin in the distance. Took pictures, snow, summertime, all the same time. And I walked through the valley. And out of this experience came a sermon that I admit is 20, well, how old is it? Yeah, it's over 20 years old. But I reworked it this week. I don't just pull yellow pages out of the filing cabinet. But that's the origin of that sermon. Then that sermon on Through the Valley, Psalm 23, became famous in my life because it was the first sermon as a student pastor in the Burleson Church. Burleson Church. Why, I sat in the car. It was I don't remember the year, but it was a Mazda 626. Nancy was there too, and I told her, I'm leaving my notes in the car, and I'm going to preach without notes. Scary. Let me tell you. Still remember that. I had a few post-it notes with the main ideas, but I made a conscious choice to leave my notes in the car. Now, in honor of that, I had to reduce my 6 pages of notes to front and back. So I couldn't preach from a full manuscript when that was the sermon where I abandoned the manuscript. If you notice Psalm 23, you'll notice something interesting. What comes before Psalm 23? All right, you're still with me. Psalm 22. What comes after Psalm 23? I'm testing you now. Okay. Psalm 24. Do you know anything about Psalms 22 where that shows up in the ministry of Jesus? It shows up on the cross. Psalms 22 is what Jesus quotes on the cross. He quotes verse 1. My God, why have you forsaken me? On the cross, Jesus went through the valley of the shadow of death himself. That's Psalms 22. But that's not how Psalms 22 ends. Do you know how Psalms 22 ends? Yeah, he did not end with the cross, verse 30 and 31. He rose from the dead. And then it says, a posterity shall serve him. It will be recounted of the Lord. To the next generation, they will come and declare his righteousness to a people who will be born, that he has done this. It really ends on the resurrection and the message of the entire gospel story. So what we have, Psalms 22 is the cross. Psalms 23 is the shepherd's crook. And then Psalms 24 is the crown of the king. Those 3 psalms go together. 22, 23, and 24. I'll just read you from Psalm 24, verse 7. Lift up your heads, O you gates. Psalm 24, verse 7. Be lifted up, you everlasting doors, and the King of glory shall come in. Who is this King of glory? The Lord strong and mighty, the Lord mighty in battle. Lift up your heads, O you gates, lift up your everlasting doors, and the King of glory shall come in. Who is the King of glory? The Lord of hosts. He is the King of glory. So we got the sequence now. 22 is the cross, 23 shepherd's crook, and 24 the crown of the king. We go into the middle of it. Psalm 23. You know this psalm. I see it at every funeral home. Psalm 23. Now listen to how this starts. I think King David has got a digital camera, and he takes pictures in this psalm, and he goes from one picture to another. 4 or 5 pictures. Let's take a look at them. You know the text very well, but I want to show you something for your personal life. I've been after you that you need to be the one doing soul winning Monday through Friday, not the pastor. I do too. I've been after you with prophecy and what's happening with marriage in society and all that, and soul winning and outreach. This one today is very personal for you and preparing yourself for your personal or for the universe's time of trouble that is ahead. You know the verses. You probably got them memorized. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Everything is perfect, it's fine. I'm with God, God is with me. I don't lack anything, I don't need anything. Got my feet kicked up with a lemonade. Everything is perfectly fine. You've had moments of life like that? Everything is okay. Okay, no problem. You keep reading. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. Okay. He leads me beside the still waters. He leads me in the paths of righteousness. Our animals, our dogs have created that. They run the same path when we open the garage. They run around, see if we might go walking. And there's a rut that's established by our dogs where they walk and run. And this path of righteousness is what you could say a rut of righteousness. So you and God are so close that you're walking the same path over and over, and people can tell where you've been walking. There's a rut of righteousness. Are you on the right road in life? This writer here, King David himself, says, I'm on the right path with God, and there's a path now. Just before that, he says, He restores my soul. The Hebrew word for restore my soul is rapha. And believe it or not, there at least used to be a Christian ministry. I don't know if they still exist. Rapha Christian Counseling. Where do you think they got their name from? From Psalm 23. It's the word for putting back together, for healing, for therapy. God is the one who restores your soul. Now, I have to admit, I have sent people to Christian counselors. But I want to point out something to you. We know Psalm 23 so well, we ignore it. If you need emotional healing, you need to read Neil Nedley's book, The Lost Art of Thinking. Change your diet. But also, go to Psalm 23, verse 3, and ponder this and allow God to come in as the great physician. He restores my soul. At Southwestern Adventist University, we have a book in the library. It's called God's Psychiatry. It's not talking about medicine, not talking about cognitive behavioral therapy or anything like that. I think it's written by a pastor, and he recommends that if you are in emotional turmoil, you take Psalm 23 and you read it 5 times a day like you would take medicine. When you get up, when you eat breakfast, lunchtime, supper, and before you go to bed, you read it and you picture the shepherd walking with you, restoring your soul. Great experience. Meditating on God's Word, not on yourself, not emptying yourself for some other spirit to come in, but you're pondering the Word of God and you receive healing from the Master Physician. He restores my soul. He leads me in the path of righteousness for His name's sake. Period. Isn't that nice? Everything is fine. Everything is good. Is that how life works? Why does Psalm 23 not end on verse 3? Wouldn't that be nice? The Lord is my shepherd, I don't need anything. Leads me to green pastures. Sheep don't drink from a fast-running stream. The shepherd, he blocks the water, makes a little pool, and then the sheep drink. By the way, have you ever thought about how, pardon me, stupid sheep are? They have to be led to green pastures. Right? That's verse 1. That's verse 2. That's verse 3. Everything is fine. Everything is perfect. And then comes verse 4. And for 6,000 years, humanity, I think, has asked the question, why? Why does there have to be verse 4 after verse 3? Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. Now there's a comma there, but we don't want to jump ahead too soon. All of a sudden, the earth opens up its mouth and wasp. Let's get it now, yeah? Take a hymnal. That's verse 4. You know, you're sitting in church, all nice, safe, no worries, and then this animal shows up that's been punished by the curse and can sting us. Did you get him? All right. That's okay. We got him. We got him. We got him. If you're listening later on online, we had a wasp in church, okay, interfering with Psalm 23. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. I listened to a friend recently. They were, as a couple, they were discussing, should we take out extra cancer insurance or not? And the wife said, it's not my family, it's a friend of mine. The wife said, we don't need that. We live healthy. We trust God. We don't need it. The employer was offering additional cancer insurance, not somebody in this building, okay, far away from you. And the wife said, we don't need that. We live healthy. We trust God. The husband said we should probably do it. And she said that would be a waste of money. Look how much that costs every month. Well, they took out the cancer insurance. Waste of money. A month later, the wife was diagnosed with cancer. 30 days later. Felt fine. Okay? The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Then came verse 4, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. Been through that myself, at least my parents have. I remember Stuttgart, 1977. My dad was working 200 miles away. He only came home every other weekend. And then finally the company, after about 2 years, said, go ahead and make the move, uproot your family, move to Stuttgart. This is going to be permanent. Yeah. Move the family. Less than 6 months later, the entire company went under. We lived on food stamps. It got so bad, my parents have admitted to me that they had looked at the medicine cabinet. Okay? They did not know how to pay for our bills. Both boys, my brother and I, we were behind in school, had to catch up on Latin, English that school had. Where we came from, we didn't have English. It was a mess. No job, no money, and just had bought a new house with payments. And my parents looked into the valley of the shadow of death in verse 4 and did not know how to get out of it. Well, we survived, we managed, we're okay now. My grandmas went through it twice, okay, at least Germany did, World War II. It was so bad, my grandmas, neither one of them ever talked about the World War II experience. For one, it's embarrassing what we Germans did. What they did was they added from the sawmill wood chips to the flour to bake bread in order to make a full loaf. Butter, 5 grams a week. You know, at hotels, those little tubs, okay, they got one a family, one a week. Inflation was so high, they carted money to the bakery in a wheelbarrow. When they walked out, the value had just sunk another 50%. Okay. Never had a grandpa because of this. But what I do remember is when my grandmas died, we had to travel to Berlin. They both lived in Berlin, and we had to clean up the apartments. Do you know what my grandmas kept? In Germany, we do not eat French fries with our fingers. French fries are not a finger food. Now, we do put mayonnaise on French fries. At least some Germans do. You eat French fries in a little paper plate with a little plastic fork. My grandmas had kept those plates and the forks because you never know when you might need it. You don't throw that away. We had to hire an entire container company to get rid of all that stuff that they had kept. You know your own valleys. You walk through, and I already pointed out, Jesus walked through the ultimate valley of the shadow of death for you and I, but I want to point out something to you. Normally, we talk about the thief on the cross and the comma being in the wrong place. You know, I promise you, comma, today you will be with me in paradise. We Adventists, we have a good, solid, hard case to move that comma. I promise you today, comma, you will be with me in paradise. Take a look at Psalm 23, verse 4, and what punctuation in the right place do you notice after the word death? Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, what comes next? A comma. Now watch this. Do you know what a preposition is? Annie, do you know what a preposition is in English? If you don't, I'll explain it right now. Because I had to learn it English second language in 6th grade. My English teacher, he jumped into the trash can, and then he jumped out of the trash can onto the desk, back onto the floor, and then he ran around the class. And we learned what a preposition is. Into the trash can, out of the trash can, onto the desk, around the classroom. And we laughed and we thought that was funny, 6th grade, But we learned what a preposition is. What's the preposition in Psalm 23, verse 4? Where's the preposition? And I will not put Annie on the spot because I know she would not appreciate that. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. Do you know what Psalm 23 says that you do with the valley of the shadow of death? You walk through it, you don't stay in it. You don't sit in the valley of the shadow of death. You don't stand in the valley of the shadow of death. What do? You walk right through it. Now, sometimes I got to tell you, the valley might last your entire lifetime. There are some valleys that will not be solved until the second coming of Jesus Christ. But nonetheless, Psalm 23 says, yea, although I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. And he also noticed English is a strange language. You have although, O-U-G-H, pronounced differently from O-U-G-H in the preposition through. Who came up with that? O-U can also be pronounced ouch, etc., etc. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. I want to encourage you. If you have somewhat given up on your valley and getting out of it, you need to redefine your valley and what you do in the valley. You might be tempted to throw up your arms and say, well, that's just the valley I got. No, you walk through it. And then it says, I will fear no evil. Why not? Positive thinking? No. Oprah? No. Dr. Phil? No. Why do we not fear evil in the valley of the shadow of death? There is evil in the valley of the shadow of death. And you are in the valley, undeniable. Okay? Can't positive thinking your way out of it when it's reality. Why do we not fear evil? Because God says something very important when you are entering and when you're in the valley of the shadow of death. We do not have a God who says, your life is in verse 3. I got verse 4 coming to develop your character. It's going to get rough. Hang in there. Good luck. I'll wait on the other side for you. I hope you make it. I hope you make it. Pray. Pray. Do you know what Psalm 23 is saying? I will fear no evil, for God is with us in the valley. On the cross, He joined us in our worst valley experience that we can go through on planet Earth in this life. It's not God saying, I'll wait on the other side. Hope you make it. He's saying, I will walk with you through this valley, and the shepherd, he's got two items. One we like, one we don't. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. And we have a rod in our church today. He's sitting in the back. Good morning. What's that rod and that staff? Now, you know the story, little lamb wanders away, and the shepherd uses his staff to get it out of the thorny bush. That's good. That's good. What else does the shepherd do with the rod? Moves them along where they need to be going. And that going might involve a valley of the shadow of death. Okay? But Ellen White assures us that in the end, looking back, hindsight's 2020, we would not have it any other way. Wow. So we can trust Him. That rod is for direction and also for discipline. Then comes verse 5. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Well, wait a minute. I thought if I'm walking with God, He removes all the evil and the enemies. He does not. Living in the presence of God does not cancel all the presence of enemies in your life. Get used to it on planet Earth. Until the second coming, we live in a great controversy, and there might be the presence of God, and there is the presence of evil and enemies at the same time. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. But Psalm 23 is saying, live in the presence of God. You do not have to fear the presence of enemies. And then comes verse 6. And then comes my PS, which is a whole page long. You know, the psalm that moves along because we're walking through the valley of the shadow of death. We're not staying in it. We're almost at the end. You anoint my head with oil. What they had back then were little flies around the nose of the little lamb. And they would lay eggs, and the larvae would travel up the nose canal into the brain of the sheep and drive the sheep crazy. Not kill them, just drive them crazy. Do you have little things in life that will drive you absolutely nuts? Now they travel into your frontal lobe that we talked about in Sabbath school, and they bug you. And they sit there and you cannot get rid of them. Do you know what the oil does on the nose? It kills the little things that want to travel into your brain and drive you crazy. You anoint my head with oil. The word anoint is where we get the word Messiah from. Mashiach, the anointed one. So this is very important. Also, it's very common for the cuts and wounds and bruises when the little lambs come home. And then it says, my cup runs over, so God gives us more than we need. You ever study biology? I know this is biologically incorrect, but if you study sheep, sheep are chicken. You can scare a sheep so bad they have a heart attack and fall over. That's what farmers tell me. Okay? We got to have a shepherd in our lives present with us with a rod and a staff directing us, taking care of our table in front of our enemies, anointing our head with oil. My cup runs over. Now, as these sheep come and the little sheep get anointed and the cup runs over, do you know what the shepherd is doing? I've seen them in the Middle East. Modern shepherds with pins about half the size of this chapel, round pins, and the sheep come in. There's only one entrance and one exit. Do you know what the shepherd does? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Counts every single one. We got a shepherd who counts on your presence. And I'm not talking about church attendance. 45, 46, 83, 84, 87, 96, 97, 98, 99. And then the shepherd panics. Not God, but 95, 96, 97, 98, 99. There's somebody missing. And the shepherd is willing to abandon the entire flock for one soul. And I'm wondering, there's some empty seats here. What if there's a book called Numbers in the Bible. What if we had the same concern for the people around us as the shepherd in the Middle East? 96, 97, 98, there's somebody missing. Now you ask yourself right now, in your life, in your family, in church, who's missing that God counts on you that you count and you miss? Did you write that down? I don't think I could say that again. Is there somebody missing here this morning, physically or spiritually, that should be here this morning? And the shepherd counts 97, 98, 99. Let me ask you, are you physically present but spiritually absent? Are you missing? I want to appeal to you here in verse 6. Notice how this psalm ends, and it's past 12 o'clock. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. That's confident. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. Now watch how this psalm ends. After experiencing verse 1, 2, 3, and verse 4 and 5, the writer of this psalm makes a commitment. I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Have you made that commitment? When I look at my ministry the last 20 years and I visit churches I used to pastor, and I look at the theology majors and the pastors who used to pastor with me, do you know what I realize? That not everybody who becomes a Seventh-day Adventist Christian fulfills verse 6. I graduated with 15 theology majors, all became pastors. I can now, in the year 2015, count on one hand how many are still in the church and pastoring. Yeah, we keep an eye on it. And the wasp flying around again. I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Now that takes commitment, because Jesus said the road is narrow and many will fall off before the end. Do you know what Ellen White's first vision was at the age of, 17? It was exactly this. The entire Advent people moving from Egypt, wicked life, onto the holy city, New Jerusalem. And what did she see? That was December of 1844. First vision. It got narrower, and more people started dropping off. The way the world is going, and the way the church is going, which is going to be my PS, it will be easier to drop off and exit than to say, I will stay in the house of the Lord forever. Many and many in my life, I notice, are no longer dwelling in the house of the Lord. Forever, that's up to God. But here on earth, too many exit signs, too many options. Now, young people age 20 and under, listen up. Yeah, I'm talking to you in the back too. Education, page 271. Don't leave and quit on church or God. Education 271. With such an army of workers as our youth, rightly trained, might furnish, how soon the message of a crucified, risen, and soon coming Savior might be carried to the whole world. There are conservative estimates that about 60%, some say 80% of young people leave the church before the age of 25. 80%. I'm looking at you. Do you know what she's saying in this quote? The timing of the second coming could be hastened by the youth staying in the church and working the work. Can you imagine the role you are playing on planet Earth? It cannot be wasted on stuff that needs a battery, an upgrade, a download, and is made in, I apologize, China. Annie. Young people have a function to stay in the church, and now God in His sovereignty, He has determined the timing of the second coming. I know that. But the youth has a chance to move up the timing of the second coming based on staying and doing the work. Why would you stay? So you get to go to heaven or you avoid hell? No. Desire of Ages, page 480. It is not the fear of punishment or the hope of everlasting reward that leads the disciples of Christ to follow Him. Here's why they stay. They behold the Savior's matchless love revealed throughout His pilgrimage on earth from the manger of Bethlehem to Calvary's cross, and the sight of Him attracts, it softens, it subdues the soul. Love awakens in the heart of the beholders. They hear His voice and they follow Him. Listen to this, page before, 479. I just switched them around. Jesus knows us individually and is touched with the feeling of our infirmities. He knows us all by name. He knows the very house in which we live. the name of each occupant. He has at times given directions to his servants to go to a certain street in a certain city, to such a house, to find one of his sheep. I got to add 5 minutes because I don't get to speak to you the next few weeks. We got good speakers coming. Keep coming to church. P.S. Psalm 23, the Lord is my shepherd. Hey, it's so nice. It makes stained glass windows. They have it in the Keene Church. Shepherd with a little lamb. Jesus mentioned that to the crowd, and do you know what the crowd wanted to do? Stone him. Why on earth would Jesus say, I'm the good shepherd? And the crowd says, really? Let's get you out of here. That's not our reaction to the Lord is my shepherd. We use that one at funerals. They wanted to create Jesus' funeral when he talked about the Lord is my shepherd. Do you know what they realized? This is something important. Solamente 5 minutos. Okay, I can do it in 5 minutes, but you need to hear this. They realized if they want to continue with Jesus, they have to recognize that Jesus is their shepherd from Psalm 23. Okay, now think about this. At the time of Jesus, this is my end time portion now, end time perspective. There were false shepherds in competition with Jesus, leading people astray. If that's what happens during the ministry of Jesus, what do you think Satan will do before the second coming of the shepherd? Send false shepherds. I've met them. I will introduce them to you before I'm done. In Ezekiel 34, I had a whole another section planned. I'll save that for another time. This afternoon, homework, read Ezekiel 34. God warns of false shepherds. Okay, I don't want to be one of them. What is important is that from the cross to the crown, we have Psalm 23, and we have to follow the right shepherd. I got to tell you, there are voices out there that are misleading. Give you a couple examples. Desire of Ages, page 478. Quote, in all ages, philosophers and teachers have been presenting to the world theories by which to satisfy the soul's need. Every heathen nation has had its great teachers and religious systems offering some other means of redemption than Christ, turning the eyes of men away from the Father's face and filling their hearts with fear of Him who has given them only blessing. The trend of their work is to rob God of that which is His own, both by creation and by redemption. These false teachers rob man as well. That means you have to assume that he can't just coast through life and the valley of the shadow of death. There will be in your life voices and options that are misleading that can cost you eternal salvation. She ends this quote by saying, it is the gospel of the grace of God alone that can uplift the soul. The contemplation of the love of God manifested in His Son will stir the heart and arouse the powers of the soul as nothing else can. Christ came that He might recreate the image of God in man. Whoever turns men away from Christ is turning them away from the source of true development. He's defrauding them of the hope and purpose and glory of life. He's a thief and a robber. So sometime in a quiet moment, you got to ask yourself, where do you get your spiritual information from? Are you feeding from the pasture of God? I've noticed now that even in our own church, into upper leadership levels, I'm walking on thin ice now, there are misguiding voices that are dangerous to listen to. I was in Germany a couple of years ago. In Germany, we have head elders who don't believe in Ellen White. My youth pastor did not believe in Ellen White. We have sections in Germany where entire unions want to separate from the Adventist church and be independent of the General Conference. We have ASI meeting in the Cleburne Church right now as I'm speaking. In Germany, ASI is banned by the official church and cannot use our facilities. What's happening in Cleveland right now would not be possible in Germany. This is Adventism in the year 2015. I went to one of our academies in Germany to do a week of prayer. I almost got uninvited. The head principal of that academy is also the leader of the ecumenical movement for that area in Germany, organizing Sunday services, etc. This is a Seventh-day Adventist. That is misleading to the church and our young people, and is crept into the highest leadership of the denomination in that country. In the Netherlands, the union voted to make every Seventh-day Adventist church a safe haven for anybody LGBT. If you don't know what that means, God bless you. Again, from my prophecy section, I'm not here to judge. I welcome anybody. I have baptized them myself when they've made a commitment to change their lifestyle. But what they mean by safe haven is not welcoming them to potluck and glad you're in church. Safe haven to them means no judgment as far as saying you need to change your lifestyle. God can give you the power. The gospel is strong enough to change any human being. You can be an elder. You can hold church office, and the entire package is not a problem with God. And Paul was misleading in what he said. That is what we're now facing in our own church. I've been on committees where Adventist leaders have said stuff that made my ears fall off. I put them back on. What I'm saying is Psalm 23 is not some cute Bible verse that we memorize and cradle roll onward. The Lord is my shepherd. Psalm 23 is necessary for us to make it through the valley of the shadow of death, and sometimes that shadow comes from within, not without. You know what I'm saying? Jesus was betrayed from the inside, not by a North Korean, a communist, a Muslim, or a Catholic, nor a Jesuit. You as a family, you as an individual need to reconsider Psalm 23 and ask yourself, who am I following in order to make it through the valley of the shadow of death alive before the second coming?